Welcome to episode 45 of Pera's Playbook, and a happy Halloween to everybody. Today I'm joined by Kendall Linnenkugel. She's currently a color analyst for the Toledo Walleye, but there's a lot of other things we're going to talk about. And yes, she is distantly related to the Linnenkugel family, like Linnenkugel beer, in case anyone had the same thoughts that I had. But Kendall, how are you on this Halloween night?
I'm good. I'm cold. It's snowing where I'm at right now,
Well,
so
it's snowing
doesn't
where
really
I
feel
am
like
too.
Halloween, but
Yeah, where are you at right now?
I'm in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay, yeah, and
hmm
I'm in the UP, so it's snowing up here too.
Do you have it a little bit worse than I do?
Oh, maybe. Before we dive into Toledo and some of that stuff, let's touch on your time at Bowling Green quick. In high school, when you were picking colleges, was hockey a thought, or was that something that came after you had already chose to go to Bowling Green?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. Yeah, hockey was a thought since the beginning. Well, I wouldn't say the beginning. So when I first started playing, I was kind of a late starter. I didn't start till I was 14U.
Oh wow.
And I played one season as a forward and I didn't change over to goaltending until I was a freshman in high school. So at that point, college hockey was not even on my radar. But I had this idea in my head where I was like, okay, like I know I'm brand new, but I refuse to be bad at what I'm doing. I obviously didn't play travel through high school. I played for my high school. I played on the varsity boys team. And so because at that point I was like, I'm playing with a bunch of dudes, like I refuse to be bad at this. I worked my butt off. I went to every clinic I could, every private lesson I could. I was basically doing like 2 seasons worth of hockey in one season because of how much I was on the ice outside of like lifting and homework and stuff. Um, I don't know how it happened, but I just so happened to get lucky enough where I had a couple colleges knocking on my door after my freshman year. So I had a prospect skate at the University of Michigan after my freshman year. And then I had a prospect skate with them every year following. I had a couple at Michigan State. Um, and then when I was a junior, is when I made my highlight reel. I posted that on YouTube, and the coach at the time, when the NCAA had Lake Superior State for women's, they reached out. I was offered a pretty nice scholarship, and I verbally committed as a junior. Um, so senior year rolled around, and I came back from winter break, and we get contacted that there was a bunch of funding that was lost, and the NCAA women's program had to not be a program any longer. They went down to ACHA. So at that point, because I hadn't signed yet, I couldn't enter the transfer portal. It was too late for me to be recruited anywhere else. So I had an academic scholarship at that point at Bowling Green. So I guess you can say I ended up at BGSU. So when I got there, actually, Bowling Green did not have a women's team. It was a dream of mine to play in college, and I was really bummed out that it didn't get to happen when the way that most people take that route. I was sitting in class, and I just happened to hear, like overhear another girl that played hockey in high school, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." At that time, I started coaching, so I was coaching 10U Girls Travel, and my head coach that I was coaching with at the time, she was just asked to be the new head coach for the women's hockey team that this girl who was in my class talking about it, she put a hockey team together. Well, she wanted to. So that by this point I was a junior. She was a sophomore, I believe, and she was just trying to get interest, see if that was something we could even put together. And so after practice coaching, the head coach pulled me aside and she was like, "Hey, like I know you're a goalie, like Bowling Green wants to put in a women's team. Are you in?" And that was like, absolutely. And so me and her got together. We found a group of like 5 other girls. We had enough for one line and a goalie, and that was enough to put in a team. So it took a couple years in the making, and we practiced my whole junior year. We registered for the ACHA. But per ACHA rules, the year that you register, you can't play games. You have to practice a whole season before you can play after. So that was my whole junior year we practiced. And by the time senior year rolled around, it was COVID year. So there was a lot of hoops to jump through at that point. I did get to play a couple games my senior year, but unfortunately, I didn't get to play college hockey until my senior year, and I only got a couple games out of it because of COVID. But it was still a really cool experience that I was able to have a hand in, even putting in a team and being able to at least play for it a couple times. So it was really cool. So I wouldn't say it was on my radar at first, and it was, and then it wasn't again. And so we did something about it. So
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about doing this podcast. Like, people have such unique journeys. I mean, your story, it's so interesting how you started late, and then, like you said, it wasn't on your radar, and then it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was. And then when you finally got the opportunity, here comes COVID marching in and kind of puts up a brick wall. Like you said, you got to play a few games, but I'm sure you would have liked to have played more. With the broadcasting journalism, was that something that you had always kind of wanted to do in high school? You wanted to, or did that also kind of come along later?
that's another funny story. So growing up, ever since I was a little kid, I've been obsessed with the weather. So I initially got into broadcast journalism because I wanted to be a meteorologist. So like Superior State, they had an actual meteorology program. But I didn't want to go if I wasn't playing hockey. So I took my academic scholarship at Bowling Green, and they had a broadcasting meteorology minor that was only available for broadcast journalism majors. So it just made my decision of what route I was going to take. I started doing the campus news show for a couple of years. I was the meteorologist. I was a reporter. I anchored a couple times, and I realized that the news and reporting the weather just wasn't my thing, even though it was like a passion of mine my whole life. So by that point, I stopped doing the news show, and I had like an identity crisis. I'm like, I don't know. This was something I wanted to do my whole life. I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. I'm over halfway through this degree. I don't want to like just drop out or change my major because I'm not going to graduate on time. Like, I was having like a crisis over it. And a good friend of mine, what's amazing about Bowling Green, and there's only a couple other colleges in the NCAA that do this, that they allow their students to broadcast their sports events. It was the Bowling Green Radio Sports Organization, BGRSO. I had a really good friend of mine. I'll name drop him. His name's Ryan Vallon. Him and I would talk hockey all the time. Like, we were great friends. We would go get dinner in between classes and stuff like that. And we would just talk hockey. And I was voicing my frustrations to him one day, and he sat and looked at me. He's like, "Why don't you broadcast the hockey games?" I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough to talk about it. Like, I don't like, at that point, the thought in my mind was, I'm a woman. I don't know how people are going to take that. And like, because I didn't know much, like how many women at that point were in sports, let alone hockey. And I was just not so hot about the idea. He coerced me into shadowing him for a game. So he was just like, "Come on, just come in and shadow me, see what you think, see if it's something you want to do." And I said, okay. So I got to the game, and I walked up into the booth, and there was a second headset sitting right there next to him. And I looked at him. I was like, "What's that for?" He goes, "You're calling the game." I was like, oh, I was freaking out. I'm like, "Are you serious? I don't know what I'm doing." He's like, "Just, you and I talk hockey all the time. Just talk hockey. Just tell me what you see." And so I put on the headset, I called the game, and I never looked back.
Wow.
At that point, I was also a junior at that time. So I was able to broadcast in the NCAA for 2 years. And COVID, my senior year being COVID, the regulations were a little bit more relaxed for the NCAA than they were the ACHA. So the NCAA teams were able to play way more games than we were. So I was able to broadcast way more games. So it was me and Ryan for my junior and my senior year. And we graduated, and then I decided that was what I wanted to do. So It's another funny
Yeah,
story.
it kind of another just like falling into it, stumbling upon it, if you will. And I guess, that's the great thing about life. You really don't know what's going to happen in your path, and people think they have everything planned out to the T, and it really doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to, and that's not a bad thing, obviously. These things all worked out for you and have led you to the Walleye now. But before we talk about that, you've also done some non-hockey stuff with the Toledo Mud Hens, the baseball team. So obviously you weren't just like strictly, I only am going to do hockey. You had interest in other sports. So how did you end up, doing some stuff with the Mud Hens?
That initially started out as an internship. Um, I was looking for something more on, like at that time, I had a passion for video editing. So I was looking for something along those lines. And I was just looking at different internships in their organization, and I wasn't sure what to find. I applied for one, I wasn't accepted for it, and I play on a beer league team. I like to call it like glorified beer league. I play for the Toledo Fire Department's hockey team as well, and every year we play our Battle of the Badges versus the police at the Walleye Stadium, and I was singing the national anthem for this game. I wasn't playing in this game just yet. I wasn't able to dress just yet. I've been playing with the team long enough at that point, so I still wanted to be a part of it. So I sang the national anthem for that game, and the person who walked me out with the microphone and everything, she was the person who ran the internships for the Mud Hens and the Walleye organization. And I just expressed my interest, and she forwarded me the job application for what's called like Swamp Squad or Pond Patrol. And it's fan experience. It's nothing too crazy. It's a really fun job. I really enjoy it. It's my throw t-shirts out in the crowd kind of one of those jobs. So that got me into the organization. I started working baseball before I started working hockey. I actually was on fan experience, the Pond Patrol with the Walleye, before I was broadcasting with them. So I was applying for it. I just happened to meet the person who ran all the internships, and she forwarded me over there, and it was a perfect match for me. I fell in love with the job right away, and I still work with that organization today. I still pick up shifts every once in a while for baseball games. It's a really fun job. So I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it'd be a fun job. And then, so you just mentioned that you were doing some fan experience stuff with the Walleye. Once you were with the Walleye, then I'm assuming somehow a job opened up for the color analyst. Did you apply for it? Were you offered it? How did that, is it another good story?
I don't know. So the thing is about this career path is this is one of those jobs where a lot of it's who you know and not what you know. By this point, I had only been calling games for 2 years. I was fortunate enough to do it in the NCAA, so that gave me some really good experience. But so the play-by-play commentator for the Walleye, he was also the play-by-play person for the local like sports station that would do like my high school games. And so he would call my high school games when I was still playing for them. And so he knew my name. He knew who I was. We followed each other on like social media and stuff like that. And I was thinking about like what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go the fan experience route, because at that point I didn't think like I had enough experience, or if I was good enough to try and like make the effort to go commentate professionally. I reached out to him on a DM on Twitter, and I said like, hey, this is something I did in college. I don't know if you've seen any of my clips, but if there's like an opportunity I can shadow you, or like if they're like, they do a weekly show called Ice Check, and it's like they show the highlight reels of all the high school games that week, and they pick like the 3 stars of the week and all that fun stuff. And studio hosting has kind of been on my radar for like in and out. So I was like, maybe if I can shadow you for Ice Check, if I can shadow you to call a game, I would just love to network, get in the booth, see what it does, see how it works, how everything works professionally. And he was super kind and he says, you know what, let me just add you to the rotation. So COVID kind of put a damper on that the first season. So this is my second season now going into it. Our opening night is in 2 days from now. But I guess technically this is supposed to be my third season, but COVID put a damper on it. They weren't, the regulations for people in the booth versus people like being with the players was really, really strict. So I didn't get to do it that initial season, but I kept badgering him the whole year, the whole following baseball season, and he brought me in the season after, and it is the best thing I've ever done in my life. But it started with a DM on Twitter.
Hey, so I guess the moral of that story is you got to shoot your shot, and just sometimes it is that email, the text, DM, whatever it is that can get you your opportunities. So what goes into preparing for a game? Like, what do you have to do to prepare when you're going to call a game?
So for me, I try my best to stick into my wheelhouse, which is goaltending. I go really, really in depth of the goaltending stats for the week. I try my best to look at the game notes for the opposing team's goaltending the week before. I'm a big statistic person. I like to know the statistics of my players going in. So I make sure I brush up on the game notes and like what's going on in the ECHL that week. What are the players' ranks, like highest scoring defenseman of the week. And let's say if it's a walleye player, I highlight that in there. So, or like highest scoring forward of the year so far. Let's say it's Brandon Hawkins for the walleye. I highlight that. And if he scores a goal during the game, I make sure it's something I mention during the game. So a lot of it is just like I go over the game notes. I like to highlight like special things where I see in terms of like my walleye players versus the whole league. I'm big on statistics, and when it comes to actual gameplay, I try to stick more with goaltending because that's just what I know the best. I like to explain the mechanics of goaltending, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback. I remember specifically, there was a goal that was let in. I don't remember who was the goaltender at that time for the walleye, but the goal was let in basically because it was a wraparound on the far side, and that goaltender was trying to push off the post and get over there and hit it, but the goaltender's skate missed the post, so he had to get that extra leverage to push over there, which took extra time, let in the goal. And when I explained it and I had them actually like go and play it back so I could talk through it as it happened, I got a lot of people reach out to me saying like, I never, ever, ever would have seen that if that was not explained. I like to do it. Like I don't hear a lot of people talk about goaltending in the sports world or in the hockey world. So that's like my little like sprinkle of like my expertise that I like to throw in there. But so mostly I stick with goaltending. I like to stick with those kinds of stats, and if I can look at different plays going forward. So like, let's say if it's Brandon Hawkins' second goal of the season, I like to make sure that I know that ahead of time. So when I go in, I'll be like, okay, that's his third coming up. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff. I do a lot of game notes ahead of time.
Yeah, you got to show the goalies love. They're one of the arguably the most important piece on a hockey team. Like if you have a bad goalie, your team's not going to go very far. you got to have a good goalie to be successful. So gotta definitely show the goalies some love.
They deserve some love every once in a while. They don't get it a whole lot.
Yeah, it's kind of like offensive lines in football. Like people love to complain when they're not playing good, but when they're playing good, I feel like they don't always get the praise they deserve. People want to talk about quarterbacks and running backs, wide receivers, and everyone, the fun positions, just like in hockey. People want to talk about the goal scorers, but you got to show love to all the important pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So you also had something to do with the Super Bowl, I saw on your Instagram. So what exactly was it, and how did you end up doing that?
That was another internship. This one, so a good friend of mine from high school, he works in the NFL now. And so he found this program. I don't know how he found it, but he got to work the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Whatever year that happened, I think it was 2021. And I was thinking about it, like I was just trying to think of like different things. Like I wonder if the Winter Classic had something like that. They didn't. I looked. I was kind of sad about it, but I ended up just reaching out to him and I was like, hey, what was that program that you went through to go to the Super Bowl? It's called Living Sport. And it's just an online application. Submit your resume. It's mostly for current college students or recent grads that want to have a jump into the sports world. And they are open to anybody in the sports world, broadcasting, photography, videography, graphic design, sports business, sports management, like they take it all. And it was just an online application. It was open for like a month and a half. And I think it was like 500 people applied and they accepted 49. So I don't know what exactly the qualities I had that made them want to accept me. I was super grateful for it. There was an interview process as well that we had to go through. It was a interview panel, group interviews. That was super fun, actually. I enjoyed the interview process. It was challenging, but it was also really cool to listen to other people's perspectives and where they came from. But so when we got there, it was 10 days. I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was at that Super Bowl. We landed in Phoenix and we were all staying in like different Airbnbs with just like different groups of people. And we got to experience every other aspect of sports that we could. So we toured the baseball stadiums. We toured, so like the Arizona Diamondbacks. There was a practice facility that we toured. We got to meet like all of their like ticket reps and their sports management, like people who run that, people who run their fan experience. And they just had these panels and we got a chance to ask questions and take notes. It was 10 straight days of just getting to tour these super cool facilities, getting to meet a lot of people that were high up in these sports teams and these sports organizations. And then we had some fun in between. So we got to work the Super Bowl experience as well. So in Phoenix, they rented out like their conference center downtown and it was just full of different stuff for the Super Bowl, like where kids could just do those activities like the Play 60 stuff that you see. It was just 3 full floors just full of activities. So we got to work that for a couple days leading up to game day. For game day, we didn't have a whole lot to do in terms of like what our expertise was, but we still had a really cool, and I would like to say important job. My organization specifically. So actually a lot of people from my university went too. So BG's sports management program went. So it was really cool to meet some of my people from my alma mater too, but they had a different job than us. I think they were doing something with concessions or something. My organization I was with, we did wayfinding on the main concourse. So we got to just show people where they were supposed to go, just make sure things didn't get too crowded. I was offered a management position for that game day. So I was able to walk around the concourse and make sure everything was going well versus like everybody else who just had to stay in one spot. So that was nice for me. I got to walk around a little bit. I got to meet some really, really cool people. I actually like physically bumped into Jason Derulo on the concourse. So that was fun. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you're good. You are fine. Like, I promise. So that it was a cool experience. It was, they taught us like different things of like how to interview in the sports world, how to, like gear your resume towards whatever field you want to go in. There was a ESPN was having some sort of event that we were allowed to go to and meet people and ask them questions and stuff like that. So it was a lot of great access to some really cool people and who have a lot of great connections in the professional sports world. So if that's anything anybody wants to get into, I would totally recommend applying for that. And they do more than just the Super Bowl, I will say too. They do, I think this past year they did like the MLB All-Stars. They do stuff with soccer. They travel to like Thailand and stuff like that. And they do the Olympics and all that stuff. So they do more than just the Super Bowl too, if you're not interested in football. But
yeah, it sounds like just like, I mean, absolutely everything you could kind of want out of an, like learning experience and like you said, meeting connections and just kind of get to see how different things run, seeing different facilities. I mean, a lot of information shoved into 10 days, but it sounds just like it would be an awesome experience, great memory, and whether whatever your job is at the Super Bowl, you still got to help out with the Super Bowl. You still had a role in that, which is super cool. One of the biggest, some people would argue the biggest, depending on who you are, sporting event in the country each year. So definitely super cool. One other thing I wanted to mention I saw on your Instagram is you had a post about Winterfest, and you were playing like an outdoor hockey game. Was that with the fire department?
Yeah. So Winterfest, for anybody who doesn't know, the Toledo Walleye, every 4 to 5 years, we do kind of something similar to the Winter Classic, where we build a hockey rink on our baseball stadium for the Mud Hens, and we just do a whole like 2.5 weeks just full of like kids tournaments and open skates, and there's different like just bigger games. So the that game I played in that was with the fire department. It was a fundraiser game with the fire department from Worcester, Massachusetts, and we did a big to do out of it. We raised money for the Leary Firefighter Foundation for them, and that was to benefit. We geared that focus on firefighters who lost their lives in the line of duty. They had what they call the Worcester Six, where they had a large warehouse fire, and it killed 6 of their firefighters. And recently in Toledo, I guess not so recently, it was like almost 10 years ago now, but it still feels pretty recent. My parents are both retired firefighters for Toledo, so it's still pretty close to my heart. It's close to my family. So it feels way more recent than it is, but we lost 2 in a fire. A roof collapsed and it killed 2 people on the same crew. So we did a big fundraiser for that one, just to honor everybody. We had some jerseys printed up. It's sitting in my car. Otherwise I'd get up and go get it. But we had all of the names printed on the bottom half of that jersey. That was just all of like the line of duty deaths that the Toledo Fire Department and the Worcester Fire Department had. So it was a charity game for their firefighter foundation for that. I don't know exactly what their charity goes to, but a lot of it, they raise money for like firefighters who have been injured on the job or got sick. A lot of firefighters get cancer from breathing in all of the carcinogens and stuff like that on the job. So that was a really cool experience. The Walleye had a game that night. So it was our game. We had noon, and then the game after that was the Toledo Walleye alumni versus the Detroit Red Wings alumni. So we had a big charity party during that alumni game. It was in just one of the suites upstairs in the baseball stadium. And we did like a live jersey auction. We did like another silent auction and like a bunch of other stuff just to raise some more money for it. Drew a lot of people in. It was really cool. And then the Walleye game that night, so everyone got tickets to that Walleye game. If you came to our game, our tickets were able to transfer to the Walleye game. So it was a really cool experience. And since I was working for the Walleye at that time too, I got to work that entire 2 weeks. So it was a lot of long hours. I think for 2 weeks straight, I was working 13-hour days. But it was so worth it. I was rink guarding, I was working kids tournaments, I was playing, I was doing other charity stuff. It was a really, really cool experience.
And you got to meet a few of the Red Wings alumni. I saw you had a picture with Darren McCarty, and it had to be pretty cool to meet some of those legends.
He's a great guy. First of all, he is super funny. I love him to death, and I've only met him like once, but he's great. So him and Mark Deasley from the Toledo Walleye, or Toledo Storm at that time, sorry. They called him the Diesel. He was a big face in that organization too. Him and Darren both came into our locker room, and they just were hyping us up. They were our coaches on the bench. It was really fun. And then like another really cool face. So if anybody out there has watched the movie Goon, the main character in Goon, Doug Glatt, the character that person was based off of. So this guy, Doug Smith, he was the actual real life goon that they based this movie off of. And Doug Smith is from Massachusetts. And so he came with the Worcester Fire Department and he got to play with Worcester. So I got to play against Doug Smith. It was so fun. I got to meet a lot of cool people. I got to know Doug really well. I got to know Mark really well, and Darren. It was really, really cool. It was fun. And it's really humbling to see that like people that a lot of people consider like that high caliber would be interested in something like a fire department game, but it was super cool and really fun to meet those people.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome experience. And I know, like, I've listened to Darren McCarty on podcasts and stuff before, and he sounds like a pretty cool guy. Like, he'd be a good guy to just like go to the bar and have a beer with, and like pretty fun to talk to. It's always fun, or it's always nice when people of that high caliber, they're celebrities in the sports world, and when they're good people, it's always awesome. And there's a lot of athletes that aren't. So when you run into the ones that are, and there's plenty of them that are, it's always nice to see that, that just because they're that high platform doesn't mean they're not still good people, or they can do a lot of, like you said, they come to the fire department game, or stuff like that. So that's definitely super cool. What are your hobbies, when you're not hockey or broadcasting or anything else like that? What do you like to do?
Well, I'm a coach, so I like to coach. That's still hockey related, but I enjoy it. That's just something I do. I coach an hour away in Detroit. I coach 12U girls, the Plymouth Lady Flyers. I'll give them a shout out. They're great. They're all like my kids, and I love them to death. I would do anything for any of those girls. So I've been coaching for about like 7 years now. Outside of that, I'm really into music. So I play guitar, I sing. I used to perform at bars and restaurants when I was in high school. I stopped doing that in college because I was trying to just focus more on my career and stuff like that. But I really enjoy singing and playing my guitar and doing all that stuff. And I'm a pretty big gym rat. So I spend a lot of time lifting and stuff like that outside of that, but that's just something I enjoy. I'm not training for anything. It's something, it takes the stress off of work during the day. I enjoy it, but mainly my other passion is music and singing. Was, I did marching band when I was in high school, and I also did theater for a while. So I was either like playing in the drum line, or I was singing in theater and stuff like that. So I had like a pretty broad spectrum of activities that I did in high school between athletics and arts and stuff like that. So I'd say music is a pretty big passion of mine.
What's your favorite genre of music?
Oh, it depends on my mood. I'm one of those where I will listen to absolutely anything. I'll be like 1 minute I'm Luke Combs, another minute I'm Demi Lovato, and then 2 seconds later I'm listening to Five Finger Death Punch. It depends on my mood. I really like country. That's probably one of my most consistent, where it'll be on and I'll just like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I can have that as background noise. So probably country.
Yeah, it's good to have different kinds of music for different kinds of moods, or have a diverse kind of music portfolio. Obviously, some people are like, I only listen to country, everything else sucks, or I only listen to rap, or whatever it is. What's your favorite sport? Is it hockey?
Yeah, it is.
I figured,
I won't
but
sugarcoat that. Yeah, it is.
I had somebody else on the podcast who's involved with he's actually one of the founding members for the MIHL. He's with the Gaylord Snow. He's like one of the original people left that started that league. And I asked him, and he was like, honestly, it might be football. And I was like, surprised, because he's a big hockey guy, and hockey's everything. So now I feel like I got to ask, because people might secretly like other sports more than the one that they play or are around.
I do really like football. I'm not so much the NFL, but I get really hype with college football. I'm a big Michigan fan. Go Blue. Sorry. But I follow college football pretty heavily. Like I know the stats going in week to week. So if I
Yeah.
had to choose another sport, it would probably be football.
Yeah, Michigan. Ugh, can't say I'm right with that one. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, like huge Notre Dame fan. So can't.
At least it's not Ohio State. So
Yeah, well, I can't stand Ohio State either, and especially after that touchdown in the game earlier this season with whatever 3 seconds left and 10 men on the field and all that stuff.
yeah,
And
I remember watching that one.
yeah, I was screaming at my TV. I was not happy. So, what would be your like dream sports journalism or broadcasting job if you could have any job in the sports world?
I want to do what I'm doing in the NHL. Either commentating or studio hosting. One of the two. So that is ultimate dream, ultimate end goal is that if I can make it to the NHL, that would be the dream.
Yeah, well, it's a perfect dream to have, and what better place to start than the ECHL? I mean, just like a lot of guys coming out of college playing, they start in the ECHL and then just got to work your way up.
So we'll
So
see.
yeah, right. You just gotta take it as it comes. Everything else so far about your story has been kind of just like things pop up and things just kind of appear. So I guess you never know what's gonna happen.
I consider myself a fairly lucky person. Like there's some of the stuff that just plops in my lap where I'm like, I don't know how like people like work their whole lives for, and this stuff just falls in my lap and I feel bad where I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like I just happen to be friends with this person and it just happened. Like I
Yeah.
consider myself a fairly lucky person.
Well, it's good for you. Well, in the spirit of Halloween, we'll end the episode on a couple of quick Halloween themed questions. So, what is your favorite Halloween candy?
Reese's cups.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yep. I'm a big Reese's guy too. Love Reese's. Always have Reese's Pieces, Reese's Cups. The whole just Reese's is the way
Anything
to go.
Reese's, I'm absolutely.
Actually, the one thing Reese's I don't really like is the cereal, Reese's Puffs. Not a huge
I
fan of that.
love Reese's Puffs.
Oh,
The one thing I don't like is the Reese's cups that they have that they put the potato chips in. That's not
oh, never
my
had
big
those.
vibe. I don't I'm not the big like potato chips throwing it with chocolate and like they make donuts like that. I'm not like where
Uh,
people throw like bacon on sweets. I'm not one of those
yeah,
either. Like
yeah.
keep the sweet and the savory away from each other.
Now that you say, I might have had the Reese's cups that have the potato. I think I might have had them, and it was kind of weird. I don't know. It's people are always trying to do different weird things, and like there's certain things that you kind of just shouldn't mix. Like ice cream too. There's certain weird ice cream flavors. It's like that just shouldn't be an ice cream flavor, or
hmm
potato chip flavors. That should not be a thing. I don't know who
Like
who came up
ketchup
with that,
potato
but
chips or
yeah,
something like
that
that.
that shouldn't be a thing. What is the best costume you ever had as a kid?
um, oh gosh, I don't. I mean, so I wouldn't say it was a kid, but one I had fairly recently, when I was in college, my team threw a little Halloween party, and I went as Shorzy from
Oh
Letterkenny.
yeah.
So I bought the jersey. I somehow found the jersey on like the game weight jersey with the fight strap on eBay. It got delivered in like 3 days, and my coaching helmet, I bought like this dinky, super cheap visor on Amazon, and I bought car window tint and with the mirror, and I just tinted my own visor so I could go as Shorzy to this Halloween party. I think that one was my favorite. It
Yeah.
was it was really poorly put together, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. That sounds like a pretty good one. What's your favorite Halloween memory? Just kind of whether it's college or a kid or just kind of looking back.
Hmm. I I guess it's my favorite because it's just funny looking back on. So because I live in Ohio and I'm a Michigan fan, people don't really take to that too kindly. I think I was 12, I want to say, and I went as a Michigan football player. I didn't think I was going to go trick-or-treating that year, but so it was just something last second I threw together. I had a football jersey. I used my dad's like hockey shoulder pads, and I went, and so by this point I was 12. So I was already like on the cusp of being too old to trick or treat. And I was dressed as a Michigan football player. And when I got back home from trick or treating, I went with my little brother, and we used pillowcases for our trick or treating. And I think I had like this much of my pillowcase full of candy, and my little brother's was just like the whole pillowcase. Like he had to sling it over his shoulder. And I was like, we went trick or treating at the same house, and I had like a maybe a 16th of the candy that he did. So I was kind of offended in the moment, but like when I look back on it, I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, your own like Charlie Brown moment. I got a popcorn ball. I got a whatever. I
They
got a
might as well have
rock.
given me rocks, I swear.
Yeah. I always thought that was so horrible watching that. Like so terrible. Like he's got did a bad job at his costume and people are handing out
Pack full of
rocks. Like,
rocks.
it's just so terrible. It's really, really good lesson to what not to do, I guess. But yeah, your own Charlie Brown moment. That is funny. That's still terrible. Like you got less candy, just like whatever. Ohio State, Michigan fan. I mean, still kids
Needless
trick or
to say, that
treating.
was the last year I trick or treated.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. You kind of got discouraged there. All right. Well, Kendall, thank you for coming on the podcast. You have super interesting journey. I think yours is a good one if people listen to it to kind of just learn that if things aren't going the way you expect them, you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes you got to send a text or a DM or just talk to people and opportunities will arise. So thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me.